Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To send and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Um, I do have some good news. I've just been informed that the fire escape will no longer be a legal requirement for the sign. Um, the fire escape, as I mentioned, would have been about $2,097 at the time I did the conversion. The sign will be I think about 700 US. Um, that's a big difference. I mean, I was looking at having to spend about 2,797 US or 2,897 US. 2,000 of that, with 2,097, at least on that day's conversion, is not there anymore. It's not a necessity based on the news that I just got. I wanted to share that good news with you all. It'll take a while, but I'll eventually be able to send in that amount for the sign. Um, the sign will tell everybody where the business, which business it is. That would increase even more people coming in. But I wanted to thank you all for all the support you have rendered. If should you choose to send anything in from here on out, then it would again either go to a salary payment or towards putting up the sign to generate more revenue for the salary payments. Either one, it will go for that. I wanted to tell you all that the employees have thanked my agent who passed it on to me. They pretty much extended a thanks to the continent and its diaspora in the Americas, pretty much to our people for doing this. This is a small business the size of a few small office rooms put together, um, run by one insignificant man, but it showed something. It showed that we actually do appreciate sincere allies, even neutral people, and that we can cultivate alliances, but we have to be very careful in doing so. And oftentimes, the allies are going to be very obscure and are not concerned with being in center stage. This is the culture necessary for somebody to be allies with us. It did not take a common enemy this time. I also wanted to point out that, sorry, I got distracted. Um, I wanted to tell you all also that the reason I opened this up was because I wanted to discuss something about them coming to the table. Whether the gender war is over or not, it seems to depend again based on individuals and based on who is where, which part of the country in which you find yourself, things like that. It's normal. Some of you can see that it's over. Some of you can't see that it's over. And I'm over here, not even in a state or even an overseas territory, but in a completely independent country in another continent. So I have to rely on you to tell me, is it over? And that's where you are or not. And that's fine. That's normal. BGS has talked about the difference between those who are willing to talk at the table and those who simply want to keep fighting. My answer to that is this. I would say to you that, in all honesty, man, the best thing I can recommend is neither to continue firing shots, wasting ammunition, nor to stay put if you have the option of leaving. To continue the camouflage, in person appearing to be someone that does not even know what's going on, in person, working, attaining skills, ducking your head, and saving up both resources and acquiring skills to serve you so that one day you can fit the guck out, hiding your passports from even your lady relatives, things like that. I recommend All right. Sorry, I got distracted again. But it is good for you to not get caught up in going on the offensive without being offended first. We should still continue. One thing that is, well, two things that are very important: working on getting out, because I don't want to tell you to go back to the table. And there's a reason for that I'm going to get to. And also, we need to continue telling these young bloods what to expect and what to face. And one of the things about which we cannot allow there to be any sort of negotiation, even if you did go back to the table. No, we have the right to tell these young boys what the games are, just like you tell these young girls what the games are. Do not tell us not to tell them. That can't be negotiated. Only individual ladies who are not a part of the problem have the right to not be offended by us telling these young brothers what they're going to face. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. They should not be offended if they're not a part of the problem, but they should be glad that these young men will know who is a part of the problem, and therefore it increases the chances of those who don't play these games, de-incentivizing playing these mother cuss word games in the first father mucking place. This is important too. Can't be negotiated if you do decide to be one of those guys that does go back to the table. See, if most of us don't go back to the table, but if you decide to go back, then that means that if you do decide to go back, even though you were not working in our best interest by going back, you still have us working in your best interest, because by us not going back in mass and in large numbers, you get to negotiate for better terms. So it's a win-win, even for those of the few, the weakest few of you, this is a win-win, as long as most of us don't go back to that table. Those of you who do go back need to make sure that you do go back understanding you were rare, you were a precious gem just because you went back to that negotiating table. And therefore you say, look, ain't too many of us here. I'm one of the few that is breaking ranks to come here. Now, I'm not telling you to do it, but I'm telling you that if most of us do what I said, the few that don't still can benefit, as long as you've got some sort of strength. And I'm afraid most of you won't. But should you find some strength at that table, you can say, look, I'm one of the few here. I'm not here to oppress you, obviously, but you are going to offer good terms, or we out. Put something sweet on the table so that we don't need to just leave, because right now there are flights leaving consistently. But I want to tell most of you not to go back, most of us to not go back. And the reason to not go back is this. We know that a few will, but if most of us don't, in addition to what I just said, the ones that do go back will be able to say, well, look, this is what they're talking about when you do go back to the table. Either they say, well, the few of us that do go back are rare and precious and we're treated as such and offered good terms, or they're going to say, well, the few of us that do go back are treated like we're weak and like we're just the worst. And they assume that we just couldn't get on a plane because we went back to that table. And see, that right there tells us something. Number two, by most of us not going back to the table, we avoid something that I do know is very likely to happen if even a third of us went back. I did not learn this from one of us. I did not learn this from a brother. I did not learn this from one of the sisters. I did not even learn this from somebody that is from amongst our people, nor did I learn this from somebody. I didn't even learn this from somebody in the States. Sadia, the psychologist in the UK, who has her YouTube shorts, is the one from whom I learned what I'm about to tell you right now. She talks about ways that men wind up losing the respect. Here's the thing. I mean, she was the one that said that, if she cheats on you, you don't take her back because you indicate to her that you don't have any boundaries. And I agree with her. You don't. I mean, she cheats, you take her back, you send the message that you don't have boundaries. And, she's not going to say, well, you're grandiose and magnanimous because of your forgiveness and your mercy. She's going to say, you don't have any other options. That's not okay. And she's right. It's not okay to send that kind of message. The issue here is this. you're going to wind up sending that message by accident because in the West, the games are so deep that they trick themselves into always assessing you in the worst possible light. So here's the thing. Let's say that you actually were forgiving of a situation like that, but not because you had no boundaries. Rather, you were forgiving of a situation like that because you remembered some really great thing that she did do a long time ago. And you're simply saying, okay, well, this is one of the cards you earned. I don't see it that way, but I'm saying that if you did, you at least aren't just somebody with no boundaries. But do you think that you can be perceived that way? What I'm saying is that it's so bad you can't even be perceived that way. There's no doubt of which you're ever going to get a benefit. Are there doubts of which you're going to get the harm? Absolutely. They're always there. They will create those doubts just to hold these things against you, but there's no doubt of which you're going to get any benefit. So simply put, while we give the benefit of the doubt, they simply they give the doubts to any benefits. They're just doubting all benefits. Can you afford that? I'm telling you, you can't. I'm telling you, sitting here telling you now that in the event that you are willing to give the benefit of the doubt because you're fair, you are simply going to have all of your benefits doubted unfairly, undeservedly, unprovoked. So I wanted you to understand that, gentlemen. I wanted you to realize that going back to the table to negotiate, to be even a third of us, to hell, 25% of us doing that is going to be a major issue. That's what it's going to do. It's going to result in just more of the same thing, only a different manifestation of it. It's a pattern that already exists, but it would simply be proven in another way. They're going to the table to talk. And yet, just like a child who begs for mercy when they've been caught misbehaving several times and now sees a consequence coming that they just aren't ready to deal with the fact, like they know that this is going to be that real major butt whooping with, the belt with maybe some tax in it. The kid knows that may be what they deserve. They really screwed up. They know that's the punishment that's waiting on them, but they're still begging for mercy only because they just don't want to get that pain. But if they were to receive some sort of mercy, they would turn and do the same thing again because they already have it in their minds that you don't have boundaries. And if you do, how dare you have them? That's it. They can't perceive of anything else. It is to them as simple as you don't have boundaries and you better not have them. And if you do have them, well, you're out of line. They're looking at you like you've already shown you don't have them. So I'm not going to even pretend that you might have the boundaries. They're pretty much saying there's no way that I'm going to perceive or assume or guess anything in a way that is good for you. No. I'm here to to assume that you are. Yeah, they're pretty much telling you I'm here to assume and to assume the worst. And the assumption that I'm going to make is the assumption that you, well, whatever doesn't work in your favor. That's what I'm getting at. Saudi, the psychologist, talks to men about being high value by having boundaries or remaining high value by having boundaries. And I think that she's right in a normal setting and sense, but what even she does not fully understand that the crap testing amongst our folks, both in the UK and in the US and Canada and the Anglophone Americas, is on steroids. So you might be able to pass a crap test in another place. You can't pass one with one of ours. I shouldn't even say one of ours. They're not even ours anymore. You cannot pass one of Sapphire's crap tests. She's not going to accept that you pass. She's not going to accept the results. It's sort of like if I were to turn around and if I already assumed that one of my students is a cheater. Now, maybe I assume this and I'm right. But the student keeps on scoring hundreds, full marks every time. But this is what happens. I can turn around and give exams in a different way, separate exams that prove with their phone in my hand, separate exams that prove that in fact they did cheat or did not cheat. I can do that by giving separate exams. But the thing is that let's say that let's say that they keep on passing. And they speak with a very minimal error rate, and they correct their own errors within seconds after making them. They can hear their own errors. And then they take the test and they actually score very highly when I'm holding their cell phone and every other means of cheating, and nobody else was in the room to communicate with them, and they didn't have access to the test beforehand. And let's say that that's what happened. In other words, they keep passing and they're passing without cheating, but I keep turning around and saying, no, they're cheating. Now, what does that tell you about me at that point? Well, it tells you that I'm biased, right? If I were going to do that, then that would mean that I'm biased. I don't do that. If a student takes the test in front of me and doesn't cheat and they pass, then they get every score. And I don't call them a cheater. I call them honest students. But if I did what I just mentioned in the example, that would make me biased. It would make me a problem. You don't understand that you are dealing with a scenario in which the professors and the judges that have to assess you are already biased against you. You're not starting off with neutrality. You ain't had it in decades, and you ain't gonna have it for decades more. That's what I wanted you to understand. The same reason that you should leave, if you can, is the reason that while you do not necessarily need to be continuing to fight if no shots are being aimed at you, you still should not go to the table to talk about a reconciliation. If you went and you were going to talk about just a ceasefire and a peaceful split and independence, well, I mean, hell, you're leaving. They don't have to negotiate for their independence. You just work, acquire skills, look abroad, pick a place, learn as much as you can, prepare in advance, go. That's what you do. Preferably even 3 different places so that you increase your chances of finding a legal status to live permanently in one of these places. That's what you do. But you do not, under any circumstances, debate about whether even so much as a fourth of us, hell, a fifth of us, that's 20%. You do not sit up there and debate about whether even that many of us should go to the table and talk. It's one thing to lay the weapons down or to put them at your side and don't aim them anymore. If the enemy inclined towards peace, then you incline towards peace. But don't assume that this is an enemy with whom you can reconcile. The next generation may have a different paradigm. It's possible. The ones that are now kids may have a different paradigm when they get into their teens and into their adult ages. It's possible. Time will tell that. But understand, you can't pass a crap test by doing anything other than bouncing or something that is outright illegal. I hope that what I said helps. Thank you for listening. Black Heart, Black Crown, Blackout, Assalamu alaikum. Black heterosexual, non-select male power just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy till extinction to Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us again on Jet Black Airways, where jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.